Hi, JamesAnimalHarrison. It's time for Thursday Stories. And today we're going to talk about a drummer that is probably an influence on a lot of you and you don't even know it. He's an unsung hero and should be mentioned among some of the greatest ever. And I'm not talking about somebody loaded with chops. I'm talking about the great Roger Hawkins, who passed away this past week. And he's part of the original Muscle Shoals musicians that had played on so many famous hits. They were inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They're originally part of one studio. They broke away eventually and started another thing, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about, I had listened to so many tunes growing up that were on my grandmother's jukebox when she had a little restaurant, to the radio, to whatever, that I had no idea who the drummer was. I just liked the tune. And for instance, if you're into Wilson Pickett and you've heard I call it the Na-Na song, I don't want to, but it's got this great drum groove to it. That's Roger Hawkins. If you've ever heard of Respect by Aretha Franklin, you've heard Roger Hawkins. Even though a lot of people think it was Motown, some of that stuff was recorded down in Alabama with Roger Hawkins and the crew. I guess they were called the Swampers. In fact, I think there's a line in Sweet Home Alabama by Leonard Skinner where they say, in Muscle Shoals, they love the Swampers. They've been known to pick a song or two. That's who Roger Hawkins was part of, this group of studio musicians that put out so many hits. Bob Seger's Old Time Rock and Roll is Roger Hawkins. We mentioned Aretha Franklin, Think. I just drawn a blank. There's so many tunes that they were part of. And his drumming is very understated, but right to the point, and, it packs a punch, and it's just done perfectly. It's one of those things that I don't know enough about him to tell you. I don't think he's a chops person of any kind, but he can play. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he played Love Me Like a Rock by Paul Simon as well. And Paul Simon always has fantastic drumming by great studio drummers and stuff on his stuff. It's not just the drumming, it's the feel. And it just had a really, really, finding that what they call laying back into the pocket type thing. A lot of people talk about this. It became very prominent in the 80s. Roger Hawkins was doing it way, way before that. And I don't even know, I had read somewhere at some point that I don't even think he read music. I don't think any of those Muscle Show guys read music. They just used their ears and developed what was right for the song and came up with some great parts. There was a book that came out several years ago, and I can't remember who wrote it, but it was a book talking about the classic drummers of rock and roll, and Roger Hawkins is in that book. And anyway, the point of this is that obviously his legacy hopefully will be remembered through all the recordings and stuff that he did. And there's just way too many to try to remember off the top of my head or to list. And I don't sit down and write this out or think of it. I just I turn the camera on and talk. Kudos to Roger Hawkins for being an influence even when I didn't know who you were. Eventually I learned who you were. And I credit Modern Drummer magazine with a lot of this because I think Modern Drummer put a face on the studio drummers that you got to start seeing what they looked like, and you got to start reading about their stories and how they recorded this. And, some of the greatest drummers that I had seen Larry London before in Clinic and Steve Gadd but to read about some of these other drummers and not know who they were not know what they looked like or what their story was until Modern Drummer. Now, of course, we have Google and Wikipedia and YouTube and all that stuff's out there. And there's even a Netflix documentary on the Muscle Shoals that you can watch. And he's pretty prominent in there. The point is he was definitely an influence on me. And a lot of it was because I felt like, I'm not saying I'm a Roger Hawkins, I'm saying I could relate to it. It wasn't always such a reach for me to try to play it, and it was something that any drummer would benefit from trying to copy, not just what he's playing, but try to copy what it feels like. That is the blessing of Roger Hawkins. Rest in peace, Roger.